I think I should mention something about how this all started, and why this started. And I think the barakah that could have come about because of the reason of how it started. Some months ago, maybe 9 months ago, something like that, I was in a hospital. I'm not sure if I even told you the story, but now it might be the first time I tell you this story. And I had blood clots. I had something called pulmonary embolism in the lungs, many of them. And as I was on the hospital bed, the doctor told me, you might go to sleep and not wake up. And he said, the mortality rate is about 50% for what you have. And it's something that we can't do anything about, because they put you on blood thinners immediately. But they said, we have a duty to tell you this. And so obviously I started to think about it. I thought, obviously I have to leave will behind and all that kind of stuff, even though I don't have much things to contribute. But I left something behind, sorted out my will, and I encourage everyone to do the same thing here, if you haven't already done that. You have to have an Islamic will, I encourage everyone to do that. So I did that. I sorted out the will, and I said to myself, well, what have I left behind? And the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, where he said, يَنْقَطَعُ عَمَلُ بْنِ آدَمٍ إِلَّا مِنْ ثَلَاثٍ, that all of Bani Adam's amal is ceased except for 3 things. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said that وَلَدٌ صَالِحٌ يَدَعُ لَهُ, a child that you leave behind that he supplicates for you. وَصَدَقَةٌ جَارِيَةٌ, and a sadaqah which is continuous. It says عِلْمٌ نَافَعٌ يُنْتَفَعُ بِهِ, which is a beneficial knowledge that that you leave behind. Now it was not practical for that time for me to have any more children. So that was something I was not planning to do. And in terms of sadaqatun jariyah, you can only leave so much behind. That's depending on your wealth. At that time, I couldn't really do that much. But the thing that I thought about was ilmun nafa'un yantafa'u bih, that a beneficial knowledge that you leave behind. And I thought to myself, probably the best thing I could leave behind is not just debates online. It's not just these informal things that I go to Speaker's Corner or whatever it may be, podcasts or whatever. I thought the best thing is, what have I learned in all the years that I've been not just in the dawah but preparing for it? What have I learned? What have I been able to get from different people, different specialists that I have had the pleasure and honor of being able to work with? People like Sabur Ahmed, he's here today. Actually, he's a specialist in philosophy of biology, doing his PhD in it. People like Hamza Zulsis, who's also a specialist in philosophy, and others. In terms of the Islamic studies side, in the Shura, other brothers that maybe don't want to be mentioned in the camera, that are also here today. So I thought to myself, I put it all together, and let's make something out of it. And the story was this: is that in the beginning, I thought this was the plan, this was the idea. Abdurrahman was there; he remembers this quite vividly, I'm sure as well. The plan was to, in Islamic history, you've always had these kind of like poems for different funun, for different sciences, like Alfiyat ibn Malik, Al-Tadmuriyyah, Al-Hamawiyah, and it's usually named after the city that the person's in. Sometimes it can be, sometimes it's named after the person or the fen. But Ibn Taymiyyah had this idea of, when he went to a city, the poem would be named after that city, like Al-Hamawiyah and Hama, Tadmuriyyah, Tadmur. These are all actual names of cities. So I decided to call it Londoniyyah, innit? Because Londoniyyah. So okay, we're in London, so the issues that affect us in London, because these are the new Aqidah issues that affect us in London. Obviously them, at that time, it was Mu'tazilism versus this. For us, it's feminism. For us, it's liberalism. For us, it's materialism. It's atheism. These are the big picture things that we need to focus on. So I started constructing a poem in Arabic language. And obviously, I'm not really the specialist in that. I'm no Sibawayh. I'm no Mutanabbi, I'm no these big poets. And there's rules in Arabic language to make poems. It's not just, you can just make any poem. You have to, it's like 16 bihar or buhur, different awzan, and this, it's very difficult. So I did it anyway. And I sent it to Abdurrahman. I said, send it to your, because he had some, he had some scholars and teachers that were very good at poetry. So he went and sent it to some people. They said, no, this is not this does not fulfill the criterion. So I said, what do we do? Because, this was actually when I was on the deathbed. I said, I'm going to realize my dream here. So Sheikh Ali al-Qudaymi, who is a specialist in poetry and who actually wrote the Londoniyyah, he came forward and he kind of took out all the kind of information that we had. We had conversations with him in the part, and quickly just understood everything and put it into poetry format. It was almost a miracle, the quickness by which he was able to make that transformation and able to do it. I was very surprised and very impressed. And that's how Londoniyyah came about. So it came about, I think it came about in a time where I was actually sincere. There's only a few times where I can tell you in my life that I've been sincere. that I can actually tell you. This, but when you're on your deathbed, that's one of the most sincere places that you can be, because you're thinking to yourself, you're going to die. You've got to lose something for the people. You have to, it's for your own grave and for your own self. And so what happened after that was, it became a Londoniyyah. And it was even ratified and given taqreed and tazkiyah and from big people like Ahmed Raisuni and other people from the Rabita Islamiyah, people all different kinds of. I was interested because people from all different kind of creedal backgrounds were accepting this poem. And it's been a long time since Ash'aris accept something and Atharis accept something, Maturidis, all of them accepted this, except not all of them, but there were people from each group that accepted this thing. So there was a lot of qabul, there was a lot of acceptance of this particular poem. And then I said to myself, well, the time is limited, I need to go through an explanation of it. So I put the proposal to Hamza Zosis, and then it became official. And we said it has to be an invite-only class because we can't just have anyone here. We brought the people that we thought would have the most effect in the future based on what they sent us and stuff like that. And 8 months later, I have to say, I am very impressed. I'm surprised at the extent to which people can transform. People coming in quite timid in the beginning, quiet mannered, well, all that's good, but then now you're going into discussion with the brother, this one especially in the back here is trying to hide this guy who lives in a village all his life. This guy Furqan, for example, is a great example of that. He had the intelligence. Sorry, Mu'adh. Furqan as well. But you, Mu'adh, it's a great example of that, And you came in, you were a little bit, with your wording and stuff like that. And then afterwards, I see him on one of them. He's going against you. He's trying to cut you up and interject. And you remember that one? You remember that, don't you? We'll never forget that one. How about the time when Furqan was attacking us and playing devil's advocate and stuff like that? We wouldn't expect that from the first session. The transformation has been amazing. Don't you agree? And this is exactly the dream. And now there's something that we can say is substantive that we leave behind, and we're the first batch of people to do it together. I don't see myself here as being some kind of a teacher. I'm just a facilitator here. And in fact, everyone has been teaching each other. People don't realize that for the most part, these little lectures that we put forward is the tip of the iceberg of the interactions that we have in this class. And then after that, we have more interactions and stuff like that. And it's been amazing interactions where we've learned from each other. One thing I'll tell you never to learn from me is manners. This is the wrong person. That's why I never put myself in these kinds of positions. I've got a long way to go, and everyone knows that here. So just look to Tariq for that, please. Because I'll be honest with you, since we're in this in the process of talking about things, I've learned the most from this man here. Has been unbelievably generous, unbelievably honourable, the most punctual, the most I've learned more from him than he's learned from me. I promise you that, and I think all of us can attest to this reality, And so this has been something, wallahi, where it's been one of the most important projects I think I've ever undertook in my entire life. And I'm very happy that we have now reached the end of this series, and we're going to go into another series, which is going to be equally important. And another series after that, and after 4 or 5 of these series, you can imagine, with the Islamic studies that we're all doing on the side now as well, where we'll be in 2 or 3 years. We'll be in a position where we're all rounded, we'll be in a position where we transform ourselves, and I think this what's happening here is not happening anywhere else in the world. Not because of anything else, but the fact that we can facilitate certain things that other people in the world cannot facilitate. So this is a golden opportunity. This is such a golden opportunity that I can't even imagine anyone would voluntarily forego it. And that's why, to be fair, everyone that started practically has ended with us, which is a great sign that there's been valuation of knowledge from both sides. And of course, I'm not going to forget Carlos. How could I? And how could we? And, you know, he's been the most professional. He's not just his editing, his graphics, but people don't realize that this man has facilitated discussion. You know, he's been himself the leader of discussions. He's facilitated guests. His contributions have been just about right. You know, not too antagonistic and not too passive. And so he's been, I consider him as a member of the team, actually. And I think all of you would agree with me and attest to that fact as well. And so I want to give everyone a thank you from in this class and to those who've been watching at home, because I know there's lots of people that'll be watching at home who have also been benefiting us, because without them, any of this would not be possible anyway, let's be honest. The people watching at home, they're the lifeblood of the Sapience Institute.